Good morning, America. How are ya? Monday morning rail. Hi, I'm Denny Jelsma, and I am at the world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. And today is Monday, and you know what we do on Monday? Yes, it's show and tell. Show and tell starts right now. Show and tell starts right now for this Monday morning. Today I want to talk about a train that is really dear to my heart. You've heard me talk many times that I love the Wabash. Well, the Wabash was a Midwest railroad that went from Buffalo, New York, all the way to Omaha, Kansas City, and Des Moines, Iowa. And as you know, I'm a country boy from the cornfields of Iowa, and south of Pella, right next to the Des Moines River, was the Wabash line. It was about 4 miles from downtown Pella. Was the Wabash line from Moberly, Missouri, St. Louis to Des Moines, Iowa. And they had a train called the Des Moines Limited. And actually, the train started in St. Louis, and it was called the Des Moines Omaha Limited. And it ran as a joint train together to Moberly, Missouri. And at Moberly was a big division point for the Wabash. They split the train, and half of it went to Omaha and half went to Des Moines. This was a very popular train, especially for the locals. They offered sleeping cars, they had a dining car, and it left both ends, say Des Moines and St. Louis, in the late evening. And so you don't see a lot of pictures of this train because of the schedule. It was at night. You'll get some summer shots, you'll see, because of the light was very light during the summer season. And so that's why you don't see a lot of pictures. This train was discontinued in 1958, but as a little boy, I would go with my mother. She was an avid fisherman, and she would go fishing at a place called Howell Station. And it was a flag stop. During the turn of the century, they had a train that stopped all the time, but later in the 30s all the way up into the 50s, it was just a flag stop. And the Wabash would go by there, and this is the train. It was called the Des Moines Limited, and it was a very nice heavyweight train. And Wabash, the heavyweights were always blue, and so you could see here it was pulled by typically an E7. You had a baggage, an RPO, because they did pick up mail all the way. So they always had a couple of coaches, and these coaches was just constantly filled because somebody would get on in Des Moines, get off at, let's say, Howell Station flag stop. They had a diner. They always took the diner off at Moberly, and sometimes they ran it through. And then they had a couple of sleepers. They had an observation car that had a platform, and they discontinued that around 1950. But it was really a nice train. It was typically with the head-end cars, and the cars about 10 cars long. And if you was wanting to go to Des Moines and you lived in Pella, you really had a couple of choices that you could do. You could ride the Rock Island, which took about an hour. It was 41 miles. Or you could take the Wabash, but from Howell Station, which was 4 miles south of Pella, you could get on, but it was at night, and a lot of people didn't like to do that in the later years. And so, but when you was at Howell Station, I want to throw in a little thing about the Wabash. there's a big curve, maybe 2 to 3 miles just west of Howell Station, which is now the Red Rock Dam. There was a big curve, and the river, the Moines River, was washing away the roadbed. And so the Wabash in the late 40s decided they needed to do something, and so they took probably 50 to 60 out-of-service boxcars, and they dumped them in the river and on that curve to stop the erosion. And then they threw rock in between, you know, to make it, and that really did the job. And I was thinking, gosh, you know, now people are into scuba diving, and probably 50 years from now, somebody will be scuba diving and at the lake, and that point where it is called Red Rock, and that the lake is named Red Rock. The scuba diver will say, and there'll be headlines, a discovery. The Wabash had a terrible train wreck at this particular section on the Wabash, which here again, sometimes history gets a little bit distorted. And so a lot of people don't realize that these cars were put there. And one of the reasons I know that they were put there, because I fished off of it, because my mother would love to go fishing there, because it was a great place for the catfish to congregate on those boxcars submerged in water. But the Des Moines Limited was a great train for business guys to go to St. Louis. And you got to remember, St. Louis at that time, and from say 30s all the way up into the 50s, was a very big industrial area. And so if you was in Des Moines and you needed to go to St. Louis, it was a night train. You hopped on, you got a sleeper, the next morning you was right there in St. Louis. So it was a very good patronized train. And so I like it because it had historic history to my growing up in the cornfields of Iowa. And this is the Des Moines Limited. You can see that was discontinued in 1958. My version here is typically about late 40s, early 50s on the Wabash. And that's the way it is. The world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida.